Welcome and thanks for listening to the podcast. Slightly different setup today. If you're watching over on YouTube, you'll notice that the podcast studio is not where I'm at. I'm actually in front of the former Soviet consulate in Guangzhou, China. You might hear a little bit of the background noise, but today's episode has been in the queue for a little bit, and we're going to talk more Guns Garin Memorial Foundation. I'm joined by Baldi and Michael Thompson. Baldi is an F-16 pilot. His brother Michael is a PGA professional golfer and has been on the tour for about 15 years, both of which are heavily involved in the Guns Garin Memorial Foundation. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. We're going to hear a little bit more of their stories. We're going to hear some Guns Garin stories and some There I Was stories if you're over there on Patreon and subscribing. As always, thanks to my Patreon supporters. And thanks for everyone who's gone over to iTunes and Spotify and dropped a rating or review. Listen to the podcast, and if you're on YouTube, liking and subscribing. All that helps the podcast grow and keeps things moving along. Thanks to the Guns Garin Memorial Foundation for inviting me up, as well as E3 Aviation, to record and capture some of the awesome stuff they're doing. You definitely want to check it out. They're helping veterans in an incredible way, and they just got started. They're also geared towards helping youth get involved in aviation. This year, E3 Aviation is the title sponsor at Sun and Fun. We have some members of Guns Garin Memorial Foundation that are going to be joining us down there. If you're interested in learning more about E3 Aviation, you can click the link down below. Becoming an annual member gets you VIP access to our E3 tent all week. If you haven't done an air show VIP style, it is the only way to do it. And in my mind, that pays for it in of itself. Monthly E3 members get 50% off the VIP package. So in my mind, again, a smoking deal. You can click the link down below for more info. And with that being said, let's jump into the podcast with Michael and Baldy Thompson.
Tower, Demeyer Stitches, release you, runway 4 left, wind 040 at 5, clear for takeoff.
Seat tied, Altimeter 0 eyes, we're clear for takeoff, clear for the airspace. 5 projector. My burn rep curve was at 354. Lights on. Next picture, 16, 13,000,
And just like that, we're off to the races. So, gents, this is exciting. This is the first time I've had two people sitting on the other side of the screen here, so to speak. I don't know if that's good or bad, but got Michael Thompson and Baldy Thompson, or Zach, I guess is what you go by in real life. I don't know if that's true or not.
Call me whatever you want.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, good. We'll have a renaming here. Guys, thanks for joining me on the podcast. Excited to talk with both of you. We are doing a whole segment here for the Guns Garin Memorial Foundation. You two integral parts of that, but I wanted to kind of paint a picture a little bit of both, or, really the background of both of you guys. Unique in the sense that your brothers, I would say your professions are rather unique and challenging to get into, one being a professional golfer, one being a fighter pilot. We want to kind of do a little deep dive because people are going to see everything we recorded and were able to capture up at the golf tournament for the foundation, which, again, the Guns Garin Memorial Foundation, I think is an incredible thing you guys have started. It's cool to see the impact firsthand that you've had. So with that being said, I guess we'll jump off with the oldest. Michael, I always ask people to give me like the 60 to 90 second elevator pitch of who you are, a little bit of background of where you got to and what you're doing today.
Yeah. I'm Baldy's brother. My name's Michael. I play golf on the PGA Tour. I'm entering my 13th year on the PGA Tour, which I still pinch myself every day that I get to live my dream. It's been my dream ever since I was 6 years old to play on the PGA Tour. I just love golf. And I kind of, as I grew up, I worked my way into getting better. I didn't take a lesson until I was 14. I got down to a 3 handicap all by myself as a kid. Which is incredible. I don't know how I did it. It just happened. And played my way through junior golf, got a golf scholarship to play in college at Tulane University, was there during Hurricane Katrina, transferred to University of Alabama, finished my college degree there, played 2 years there, won SEC championship, finished runner-up at the USAM, turned pro right out of college, and played almost 3 years on the mini tours. The Hooters tour is what it was called. And yes, there were Hooters girls on the tee box.
Back in the day.
It was entertaining, and made it through Q school in 2010, and got started my rookie year on the PGA Tour in 2011. Been out there ever since. I've won twice on the PGA Tour, once on the Korn Ferry Tour, and just been living my dream. I travel about 30 weeks a year, and so my vacation is every time I go home.
Yeah, right.
I live out of my suitcase, and just play golf as much as possible.
That's awesome. That's 30 weeks a year. That's a lot of traveling. I have so many questions here. The funny parallel is we're all going through school about the same time. I went to Georgia Tech, and I remember Hurricane Katrina. We got just dumped on. My apartment complex was flooding. But subsequently, we had several ROTC cadets from Tulane and a few other universities down there that ended up transferring up to finish ROTC, which, again, that's not something that's very common. Obviously, it's a massive disaster that happened. Yeah. Was it tough switching universities, playing golf? I imagine there's some politics / Alabama's not a small school. Was that a challenge?
Right. Yeah. Actually, for me, it was a pretty easy process. The only downside was they dropped the golf program in December after the commitment deadline, the signing date for kids coming out of high school. So I was late to the signing. And so my choices were kind of limited. I had some universities that wanted to offer scholarships, but just didn't have them because they had already signed players for the next year. Okay. But I went through the whole recruiting process over again. I went to 5 different schools. I think I went to LSU, New Mexico, Alabama, Florida, and Oklahoma State. And Florida and Oklahoma State were actually top 5 programs at the time. And the reason why I got offers from there is because I won 4 college tournaments in the first 2 years at Tulane. So I was an accomplished player at that point. And the other nice thing was I was transferring in as a junior, so I already knew what college was all about. I kind of had an idea of what type of university, what coach I wanted to play for. And so the actual decision process, although it was lengthy, I knew what to expect. And settling on Alabama was probably the best choice I could have made because not only did I play against better competitors in the SEC, Alabama is just a fun place to go to. It's a fun school to be at. Going to football games. Right. The athletic, the support for the athletes there is top notch, probably number 1 in the country. It was just a great atmosphere for me to get better as a golfer. Because again, my dream, it wasn't to get a business degree or be in business somehow. It was to play golf professionally, and Alabama prepared me for that way better than Tulane ever could have. So
Hurricane Katrina was October, I think, right? When
August of 2005.
Okay, ballpark. Yeah. So I'd have in August, but when did you get signed by Alabama?
So I signed, I think, in April, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah.
So they dropped the golf program in, I think, December 9th in 2005. And then I spent the whole spring semester traveling to all these different universities, basically going on official recruiting visits again, where they would bring me in and I'd get to meet the team, go practice a little bit with the team, see the facilities, go to a game, go to a baseball game or volleyball or, just something to experience university life and university athletics. And then in April, I made the decision where I wanted to go.
Did you find people were out there kind of lending a hand based on the scenario you went through, or were you kind of out there on your own? I feel like there was some empathy or, some sympathy that was out there for just the devastation that Katrina hit, or were you slugging
we actually had a lot of support when right after Katrina hit, the Tulane golf teams, we went to school. We actually essentially transferred to SMU in Dallas and did the fall semester in Dallas. And I left 2 days before the hurricane hit with my golf clubs, a pair of shoes, like 2 days worth of clothes, and my schoolwork. And that was it. I was totally expecting to be back within a few days.
Right.
And so,
Not your car. You didn't bring your car.
well, yeah, I didn't have my car. Actually, my wife, who I was dating at the time, I drove her car from New Orleans to Houston. I left my car in New Orleans, and that ended up getting submerged in 10 feet of water. Totally destroyed. But once we got to SMU, we actually had a lot of like local businesses reach out and allow us to shop essentially for free to get clothes, school supplies, that sort of thing, kind of get settled a little bit. Because I had nothing. I mean, I had nothing. And that kind of held us over for a few months. And then when I was going through transferring, I was fortunate in that I had won 4 tournaments. So I had a lot of universities show a lot of interest. I had other teammates of mine that had more of a struggle in terms of finding another place to go to play golf. And their opportunities were a lot less than mine, but most of us ended up transferring, which was a good thing. And I've still kept in touch with a lot of those guys.
That's really cool. All right, shifting gears a little bit, not to ignore Baldy this entire time, but if you're watching this, he's wearing a hat. I've actually seen him in person. He's not bald, so there you go. But yeah, look at that full head of hair, so to speak. So, Baldy, same type question. Can you kind of give me the 60-90-second elevator pitch? And I'm sure I'll have a question or two that comes out of that.
Sure. Well, I did not have a 3 handicap when I was 14 or whatever, so fairly achieving that. No, so obviously, brothers, we grew up in Arizona. The funny story that we have is that when we were 6 years old, that is basically when we both knew what we wanted to do when we got older, and then here we are, which is funny. So as much as he wanted to play golf, I fell in love with aviation. We grew up in Tucson, so there's tons of fighter jets out there between the Guard and then the active duty with the A-10s and then the Vipers. Obviously, Davis-Monthan's a huge base, so I fell in love with it. And then basically pursued that my entire life. Everything I was doing was trying to kind of get myself one step closer, open another door. As you're aware of the process of getting to where you're flying fighter jets. So the first step to that really was go to the Air Force Academy for me. So did that. That was fun. Yeah, not as fun as Alabama, I guess. But
Same.
Alabama fan now by association. Right. So converted. But anyway, did that. Then got a pilot slot out of there. Went to Del Rio, Texas, and then flew the T6, T38, and then I got faked. So that gig. We can talk more about that later. But faked in Del Rio, was there basically for 3 years in the T6, and then got selected to go fly Vipers, which took me to Randolph for IFF, and then to Luke for F-16s, and then to Korea, the last bastion frontier of fighter aviation, so Harumph, and then actually got a TFI, so or active associate slot at McIntyre, so was an active duty guy associated with the South Carolina Guard flying their Block 52s, and then hit my commitment, punched, and still flying the F-16 at McIntyre here in South Carolina, and then just recently also got hired by Delta Airlines. So
there you go,
tag teaming the two. But there you go. So there's my story.
Well, not to compare you to Croc, but Croc did lead in with that he went to the United States Air Force Academy, and basically the podcast was over at that point. So,
oh my gosh,
because there's nothing. I had no more questions at that point.
Yeah, naturally, podcast over.
Yeah, talk about the differences between the Air Force Academy and Alabama just a little bit, as far as the fun meter. Having not gone to the academy, I can only imagine, but great school up there.
Just describe your first year. Nah, blocked it out.
Those penguins have been kicked off the iceberg and banished, never to come back.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Michael, you said that, you would go to school for business administration, but the only thing you ever wanted to do was play golf. Did you have a backup plan? Was it to go into business, or what was going to happen? And if golf didn't work out?
You say that. My dad actually was very adamant that I have a backup plan, because he was convinced that I wouldn't make it as a pro. And
and rightfully so. As a father, you want to protect your kids. Like professional athletes in general, the number of them is very small. It's less than 1% out of college that actually make it professionally. And then the golf world, even more so, it is. I mean, there's 200 guys on the PGA Tour that have a card every year.
What's the average length you play on the tour? Is there an average? I mean, 13 years seems like a good run, but how many years can you usually get out of it?
I would say the average is probably 5 to 8 for most guys. So getting close to 15 is pretty significant. I definitely carry more weight with regards to respect from my fellow players. Everybody knows who I am. Obviously, I know everybody. Every year there's new faces, which is kind of interesting to see how the rookies are going to do every year. Because I remember what I felt like when I was a rookie. Very nervous, very out of, eyes wide open, out of my element, didn't know what to expect, was just, felt like I was chasing my tail all year. It's to be able to stay on tour for a long time and never lose your card and have a full PGA Tour card every year is quite an accomplishment. Because as probably a lot of your listeners know, like the competition out there is fierce, and for both our professions. The competition between our peers is intense, but that's also what makes it fun. That makes it enjoyable, right? So I'm very lucky. I pinch myself every day that I'm still playing out there.
No, that's incredible. You mentioned the 3 handicap. Like I'm happy if I don't lose 3 golf balls when I go out and play. So that's a win. But I think you're right. If it's less than 1% make it to the pros, there's a lot of people who have spent their from peewee leagues all the way up through college a whole lot of time and money trying to make it that just don't make it to there. And I don't know what the numbers on the fighter pilot side, Baldi, maybe but again, it's like out of my class of 30 for T6s, 2 went on to the 38. We washed back to build a big enough class to go to fighters. I think probably being a fighter pilot's probably easier to get than being a professional golfer. But
don't tell him that.
Yeah, we'll cut that part out. That way he doesn't have it on record. But Baldi, when did you know that you wanted to go fly fighters?
Like I said, it was when I was 6. So our dad basically loved 2 things. Or passed on to us 2 things. It was golf and flying jets. So he was in his 20s. Our dad was during the Vietnam War, and he kind of got approached about potentially flying for the Tucson Guard back then, and he didn't have the eyes for it, but he just kind of always loved aviation to a certain degree. And then our grandfather, our dad's dad, played professional golf back in basically the 40s, if you want to call it professional golf. It was a lot of gambling. That's how they made their money. But, So, which that we could have a whole nother podcast about that, and probably bring our dad in to tell those stories. But obviously he kind of passed those 2 things on. We were really young, so one of the things he let us do when we were 6 was watch Top Gun. Right, so it's the classic age-old story of you see that movie. You're 6, you get addicted to it, and it's like that's what happened to me. So, again, we. At that same time, we took our first golf lessons at David's mom. So, watching jets, playing golf, like here we are. So, which is a pretty wild story. And then I just pursued it. And, our dad was in the Tucson Guard and enlisting, and, did that for a long time. And, in the Guard, it's a unique family where everybody knows everybody, so he knew several pilots as well, like, as he progressed. And, when we were kids, and he introduced me to some of the F-16 pilots, and obviously, that helped me along the way in terms of figuring out the path that I needed to take to get to where I'm at today. So, that's how it started. And that's kind of like, I never kind of gave up on that dream.
Man, so you had somebody holding your hand all the way through? I had nobody. I had to figure it all out on my own.
That's fake news. Don't kid yourself.
Well, say, like Baldi, going to the Air Force Academy, you kind of have a backup plan in the sense that you're going to have a job when you get out. But did you put down navigator or a combat system officer or weapon system officer? I don't know what the flavor of the day is. Were you going to do pilot?
I put navigator down, right? So, when you put your list at the academy, you have kind of sort of an idea of like what your chances are a little bit in terms of what kind of, AFSC, right? So like what job you're going to get when you graduate. And it was hit or miss. This was 2008, 9-ish time frame. And I felt like at that time, there was obviously the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was still kind of more or less going on. But at the same time, it almost was as if there was a surplus of pilots. So there was a big fear for us at the time was how many pilot slots were there going to be out of the academy, which is one of the reasons why I went to the academy was so that I had the highest percentage chance of getting a pilot slot from college. Right. So I put navigator on there, but I feel like the chances were decently high. But in my mind, I was one track focused. I was like, I don't even know what I would do if I didn't get a pilot slot. That's where I was like mentally. And then I got it and I was like, oh, thank the Lord, because God knows what I would do.
It's kind of the same way. I did international affairs. So if I got hit in the eye with a rock, I'd be a starving artist and I'm not artistic. So been a real rough life. So
yeah, right.
Growing up, was there some competition in the house? I'm guessing Michael spent most of your time out there on the golf course. Baldi, did you go out there and play, or were you just
there was a great deal. Again, I was just, part of like, I feel like where we are at today has a lot to do with like where we grew up and our parents and whatnot. But we grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and they had a great deal when you're a kid, 18 years and younger. You've got this little like golfing card pass thing, and you could go out and you could play basically any golf course in the city for $1, like all day long. So our parents would drop us off at the golf course and just be like, see ya.
Yeah.
And so the joke or the funny story that I always tell everybody is that, how is he a professional golfer? Because he would go out to the putting green for like 8 hours. And this is Arizona in the summer, right? So he's out there just sweating. There's like, 12-year-old back's already killing him, right? And I'm like, this sucks. So I go into the clubhouse and get like a pina colada, like that's the difference, right? So
I totally forgot about that. We used to hammer pina coladas.
Yeah, we did. But he would go out there and practice a lot, and it was competitive. But he worked at it so hard, so early, which is I feel like in sports we've had this conversation before, but like that's what you need to do. You need to keep at it every day, like reps and reps and reps and reps. And that's how you get good at it. And that's what he did probably better than anybody. As competitive as we were, he was always, put the time and effort in. So.
Well, yeah. And obviously doing something like that, you're spending years and years, like it's a dedicated profession. Michael, what was the path out of college into the pros? Are you doing different tournaments to compete? Is there like a combine, like they say, for like the NFL, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, it's actually a lot simpler than most people realize. I essentially just declared that I was going to play professionally, and I entered a mini tour event as a professional. And as soon as you accept that first prize check as a professional, you become a professional golfer. There's no real fanfare. There's no special, you don't have to sign up for anything or fill out an application or anything like that. I just entered a mini tour event, made the cut, took the money, and entered the next event, right? And essentially just tried to play as much as I could. I was literally playing 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, and I'd take a week off and I'd go out and play more. The other thing that people don't realize about mini tour golf is that it's essentially organized gambling. The entry fees, at least when I was playing, were $1,200 to play in a tournament, and I had to finish 25th or better just to make my money back.
Wow.
And so it was pretty intense competition in terms of, if you're not playing well, you're not making anything. And I think that first year I actually played really poorly and only made $27,000 while spending 80.
Good write-off.
Just traveling, and that's me driving everywhere. Paying hotels, food, entry fees for tournaments. And by the third year, I finally figured it out. I ended up winning 3 tournaments, and I think I made $100,000 for the year, so I profited probably 20, which was a good year.
Right. Yeah.
and then made it through Q school, and the real golden ticket is getting on the PGA Tour, because that's where the real money is. That's where the prestige, playing against the best competition, like all of that. So that's your goal as a struggling mini tour player, is figuring out how to play well at the right times so that you can get out on the PGA Tour.
What is that step? What's that process to get into the PGA?
I went through Q school, qualifying school, and the PGA Tour hosts that. And when I was going through it, there were 3 stages: first, second, and third stage. Third stage is often referred to as final stage. At each stage, you have to finish top 20 or better to move on to the next. So the first year I played, I was exempt into the second stage because I made the cut at the U.S. Open as an amateur. That qualified me into second stage, and then I didn't make it past that. I think I finished, 40th or whatever. And if you don't make it past second stage, you have no status. You go back to the mini tours, and you essentially struggle to make money, and you just try to figure out how to get better. The second year I did Q school, I didn't make it past first stage, so I didn't even give myself an opportunity to make final stage. And that was brutal. And that was the year I only made $27,000. That was a real struggle. I almost thought about giving up golf. Like, it was that bad.
Yeah.
Because the part of that story is when I turned pro, I was the #1 amateur in the world. Just played the Masters and the U.S. Open as an amateur. Was a first team All-American in college, so I was at the top of the top in college. Playing very consistent golf, and then I turned pro, and just it felt like I got smacked in the face. Professional golf really woke me up to the realities of professional life, and that it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you have to earn everything that you make. There's no free rides. There's no gifts. And so, that second year was a real struggle. And the third year, I kind of got back into what Zach, it's hard for me to refer to him as Baldi. When I was a kid, in terms of practicing, putting in the time. I always like to use the expression, when I get on the range, I'm trying to dig it out of the dirt, dig the success out of the dirt, literally sitting on the range and hitting balls for hours upon hours upon hours. And finally had some success. And then, so the third year I go to Q school, and I start at first stage. I finished third at first stage, go to second stage. I shot 8 under the final 2 rounds to make it by 1.
Jeez.
Like 15th
under.
or 14th or whatever at second stage. Go to final stage, and this is where it gets extremely grueling. At the time, final stage was 6 straight rounds, 6 days of golf. And the top 25 at the end of those 6 days got their PGA Tour cards. And everybody behind that got Korn Ferry Tour status. And I played real solid the whole time. I went down by myself. I was married, newly married, and I went down by myself for, almost, I think, 12 days. And played real solid. And the final round, I ended up making eagle on the second to last hole of the tournament to get in the number by 1. Mm-hmm. And that got me my PGA Tour card.
Jeez.
I think I made like a 50 footer on the second. You can still look it up on YouTube if you type in Michael Thompson Eagle at Q School or something like that. You could still see that video. It's pretty cool.
I'll have to put this in this episode. That man. So I kind of realized too. You guys are what 15 months apart, roughly. So you guys, your career paths, like the challenges you're going through, probably are paralleling one another.
Yeah,
but. I do want to jump back because it's interesting to hear you say, obviously, you're very successful in college, very successful amateur, but it sounds like you got basically like 3 or 4 years after you're out of college where you're really slugging it. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, it's
I guess
it's interesting because, obviously he's older, right? So he's kind of has the one foot out the door in terms of each phase of life, which has always been funny because I feel like our parents are more strict on you than they were on me, right? So, whatever. Firstborn is fine. But,
right.
It was interesting because, he school-wise with Katrina, he ended up being only a year ahead of me because you got that year of eligibility back, right? Thank God, right? I don't know if Alabama would taking you if you only have 1 year, right? I don't know. Yeah. So, the one good thing the NCAA did, right? The one good act that they've ever done was give every athlete
every now and then
a whole year of eligibility back, right? It's I say that story because I feel like obviously you have to work very hard, but there's also aspects of luck and everything, right? That kind of enables you to get to where you're at, and I feel like that was an instance of that. But in terms of what you're talking about, Rain, he graduated college, and so he. Is now professional doing his thing. And then I'm, waiting to get a pilot slot. I'm like, okay, I get the pilot slot. He's like, all right, I'm a professional. I actually think you had Ping as a sponsor, like right out of college, which helped pay your, when you had your $27,000 a year, you would have been screwed if you didn't have that help. Right. So like there's little, there's that. So he's now doing that. And I'm like, okay, I'm in pilot training. And then, and then right about the time he's having his bad years, like that's also like we're at when I get faked, which is not something that I necessarily wanted to do. I wanted, for those that know or don't know this process, for pilot training in the Air Force, right? You go through with your class, and you're competing with everybody at the same time, and then you get to you have your they call phase 2, right, which is your T6, and you get ranked, and then only a certain portion, get to T38s, which is the kind of the fighter track. Or Rain, you had 2 people in your class. I had 7, so it was a decent percentage of like, I think it was about 34 guys or so. And then from there, you're competing against that 7 to go down the fighter track. And we had 2, so I was number 3, and then I got faked. But it's very competitive, and so that was kind of like now I got to compete yet again as a fate to get to the fighter world while he's trying to get on the PGA Tour. So it was interesting parallel at the same time that happened, which is kind of, I feel like, been true our entire lives. And then, and then right about the time that he got on tour, and actually you got second at the US Open, and then you won a tournament, was basically the time when I got F16. So there was like lots to celebrate with the family, like in between 2013, 14 timeframe. So, I feel like to a certain degree, it was actually kind of a good thing because, we've had many conversations about our career fields and like the stress and like the challenges. And so we've, during a time like that, it was actually kind of nice because we could chat about it and be like, what do you do? What do I do? Whatever. And so you'd be able to rely on somebody like that in a totally different career field, but very similar, like mental stress environment.
Yeah.
Was kind of cool. So.
Yeah, it's pretty unique, the fact that you guys are both going through it at the same time, roughly. And I can't think of at least noise generating career fields on the opposite end of the spectrum be so different. But that's the thing. And I think I told you guys this up there at the tournament when I had an Uber driver who took me to dinner for the dinner. And he asked me what I did. I said, hey, I'm a pilot. And he goes, well, how long have you been a pilot? So I told him, and then he's like, you're so fortunate that you knew what you wanted to do at a young age. And to that, I do agree. And I've told a lot of young people too, it's like, you got to find a passion.
Yeah.
And hopefully you find it young enough because, really, the runway runs out pretty quickly. Not saying you can't reinvent yourself,
sure,
but it's really tough. Like, I'm not going to go play in the PGA Tour. Like that will not happen for me if I just picked up the golf clubs tomorrow and said, man, I really love this. I just want to go out there and do it. Like that ship sailed, and you really only have a finite window that you can go out there and pursue some kind of profession like the two you were involved in.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where our parents did really well for us, is they exposed us to as many things as they possibly could at a young age. Yeah. And we just happened to land on golf and flying, and then on top of that, once we did show our passion and our interest, they helped us pursue those. Let us dream. One thing our dad did really well was he wanted us to dream big, and he wanted us to believe in ourselves, because I think he knew, just from a sense of raising kids, like it's good for kids to dream. It's good for kids to have a passion. Whether they end up being successful in that doesn't really matter. It helps guide kids to learn how to be disciplined, how to be passionate, how to be confident. All those things are really good for kids growing up, and so they didn't ever squash our dreams.
I feel the same way. I mean, again, I've always been fascinated because, again, like I've wanted to do what I do since I was 6. Same thing for him. So that's what we have known in terms of like your mentorship, your desire, your path to get to where you want to go. That's what we've known. I've always found it interesting to ask people. I don't know if you've asked this question to other players on the PGA Tour, but like how did you get started? Where was your passion from? And I know plenty of guys in the fighter community who, kind of found it a little bit late, and obviously, again, a little bit of luck, but like a lot of effort had to go in to kind of pursue it. And I would contend that obviously the earlier you start, the easier it will be to a certain degree, just because you can get a lot of practice and experience.
Just have more time.
You have more time
to do it all.
Right? But yeah, like you said, like the runway will eventually run out with like your opportunity or your, the time that you have to hit, 10,000 golf balls, like to be good enough, right, to get to that point. But I've always been, just kind of fascinated with that topic. And we're just very lucky because our parents, both our mom and our dad, just really kind of enabled us, right? So our dad enabled us to dream big. And then our mom really enabled us. Like she was like, if that's what you want to do, like she really did a lot of research and like pushed us to be like, okay, this is what you need to do. And really kind of kept us on track. So I think in terms of our parents, we just were very fortunate with that. And it worked for both of us. So,
yeah, it's very cool. Michael, kind of jump back here a little bit. Again, those couple years as you're trying to make it, I think Baldi and I, same experience. Like, you don't really want to be a FAPE. You're trying to go through all that, but like, yeah, you got a paycheck. Like it's a known path. It's a known quantity. We're not the first ones to do it. Not saying you're the first one to navigate into the PGA Tour, but I feel like there's probably more uncertainties. Like we knew on the 1st and the 15th, we're getting a paycheck. We knew we had health insurance, those type things. Yep. What got you through those, is it fair to say, transition years? Did you want to quit? What was the motivation to keep pushing forward?
Yeah. So as Zach said earlier, I had a nice sponsorship from Ping right out of college, which was phenomenal. That actually supported me for 3 years, gave me enough money to play professional golf for 3 years. After that, I would have had to write letters to private donors and try to get guys to, members at the club that I practice at to sponsor me, for a year. Give me $5,000 here and, get $10,000 from this guy. And thankfully I wasn't forced to do that. So in that respect, I didn't have to really worry in the 3 years about living expenses, travel expenses, those kinds of things. But I think the big problem that I had in playing professional golf is, and the difference between professional golf and amateur golf is amateur golf, the score, it matters, but it doesn't affect my life, right?
When I was in school, I still had class every day. I knew when my tournaments were. I didn't have to pay for the tournaments. The school paid for them. They did all my travel. My coach helped me practice and set up, very specific drills in practice. So I didn't really have to think about what I needed to do. When you turn pro, you got to do all that on your own. You got to do all your own travel. You got to book all your own hotels. You got to force yourself to go practice and be disciplined in your practice. And then you have to figure out how to play well, because if you make too many bogeys in a round, you're going to miss a cut and then you don't get paid. So golf is very different professionally than it is amateur, because it actually matters. Each stroke matters. And that was hard for me to deal with initially. And what got me out of that was just the pure desire to succeed, because playing on the mini tours, I got to know some of the guys out there, and I got to play with a number of guys who were successful that made, every year there was 5 to 10 guys that probably made over $100,000 every year. And they just consistently, week in and week out, finished top 5, top 10. They were just machines. And I was like, I wanted that. I desperately wanted it, because again, this was my dream. This is what I wanted to do. And if I was going to succeed, I needed to figure out how to play like these guys were playing. And so just out of sheer will and determination, that was the motivation for me to put in the work and to think about, all right, how am I going to play better golf? And so I started thinking about golf more along the line of how I played as an amateur, which was just get the ball in the hole as fast as you can.
Simple,
and
easy.
And honestly, that by doing that, it distracted me from all of the responsibilities that I had as a professional golfer, and allowed me to just go out and play golf.
Well, I think I'm good now. I now have my pro tip.
Yeah,
just
right.
the ball in
You
the
have
hole.
everything you need to make it. Now it's your fault if you don't.
That's what I've been doing wrong all these years. Dang it! Yeah,
just go home.
Yeah. It's good to hear that, but I know just kind of summarizing that. I envision more or less alone and afraid. Like, you're having to be the guy to go out there and push yourself. And be, as you said, be disciplined to get things done, because you don't have that network around you, that safety net like you did in the college days, nor that I imagine like today. I know you're still doing a lot of stuff on your own, but I imagine you have a little bit more of a network and a team to kind of assist you maybe with some of the daily stuff, which is huge. Yeah. So now I kind of want to pivot a little bit, because the reason you guys are sitting together, obviously you're brothers and visiting, but you kind of have rejoined and blending the two worlds of golf and fighter pilot. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the Guns Memorial Foundation and how it all kind of came about?
Yeah, sure. So, there's a large veteran military aspect in our family. Our grandfather was in the Army, and ended up being a retired colonel, a decorated individual, very inspirational to both of us. Mm-hmm. Our dad was in the Air National Guard. Growing up, we were exposed to that. Our uncle was in the Air Guard as well, was a pilot. So we have some connections there. Michael, I think you said it in a different episode. We were out on the golf course about how, the golf thing didn't work out. One of the things he was thinking about doing was going to West Point, like to be in the Army. So, the military.
Dodge that.
What's that?
Dodge that bullet.
Exactly. I was like, why would you do that?
Wow.
But, we were all young and dumb at some point. That's right. Debatable if we've ever grown out of that. But,
right.
So there's that aspect of it. So he's always been, we actually share a lot of common interests with, we love watching, war movies or Top Gun, or reading history about that stuff or talking about it. He's always been super interested in kind of like what I do and like the places that I've been and whatnot. And so we've always had that connection, right? And then obviously, went on and did my fighter pilot gig that I've been doing. And then along the way at McIntyre, I had the opportunity to meet Guns, who was my weapons officer, right? So the Air Force's Top Gun graduate. He was our weapons officer in our squadron, took us to combat. Great individual, and somebody that Michael got to meet as well. His parents, Guns' parents, they still live up in Charlotte. So we went to a tournament up there. So Michael got to meet him, and just somebody that I bonded with a lot as soon as I first got into McIntyre. I was an active duty guy into a fighter squadron that's a guard unit. So it's a fraternity that's super tight knit. It's tough to kind of socially get kind of into that network. And Guns was one of the first guys. He was the weapons officer, right? So he's the guy in charge of our training program and everything. And he was one of the first guys that reached out to me to basically kind of befriend me, which was kind of shocking. It was like, wow, that's, it's quite the individual to basically, he's in charge of everybody in the squadron, from a weapons standpoint. And, I'm an active duty guy. I'm not even in the guard. And he's kind of reaches out his hand to kind of guide me along and get to know me. And then we found out that we both had an interest in golf. And so we played golf together within the first 6 months that I met, that I showed up at McIntyre, which again, is just baffling for somebody of that, that caliber, that weapons officer, that leader in the organization. And then we basically very quickly became friends, even though he was my instructor on many, many events, many rides during my instructor pilot upgrade, so we became, really close friends and good golf buddies. And then he passed away in 2020, which was, we've talked about this before, which obviously was a shock and, and an emotional event. And, we started the foundation like we've talked about. And really that, it's something that it was a terrible event. And it's still something that is, obviously very, very sad and depressing, right? That to lose a friend. But we had the conversation before about doing something that's military focused, that is something, whether it's a nonprofit of some variety. And when this happened, it was this was a no-brainer. So, and it was even more no-brainer because how much golf that Guns played. I mean, he loved it. He had swing aids. He had watching videos. He would send me videos. I would send them to him. And, so there's this whole big affair thing with trying to get him to play better golf. So he loved flying and he loved golf, and I fly. He does golf. This is a tragic event. We need to do something about it. And then the Guns Foundation was formed. So that's kind of how it happened.
Michael, that's the piece too. You mentioned, I didn't realize this, the PGA is big with community service, kind of outreach in those entities. Obviously, you and Baldi being brothers, passion for golf, passion for the military. What was the process for you to get involved and kind of help shape the foundation?
Yeah. So I had always wanted to be able to give back in a way to the military community. I just didn't have anything that was personal to me. We'd done an event for wounded warriors down when Zach was in Del Rio, the thriving metropolis of Del Rio.
Yeah, nothing better than that spot.
And it was actually a great event. We raised a good bit of money for wounded warriors, which was fantastic. And like my brother said, we just have a strong military connection in our family. And, if I didn't play golf, I would have joined the military in some way, shape, or form. And I got to meet Guns one time and didn't really get to spend too much time with him, but just got to meet him and his dad. They came out to the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte. And when Guns passed away, I saw how big of an impact that event had on my brother and his fellow pilots. And I've always tried to stay up with what my brother's been doing and what's going on. Get to know some of his fellow pilots, and because I just think it's a cool community. It's a cool brotherhood that you guys have as pilots. And in my mind, it was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to use my skills, my small bit of notoriety, to hopefully honor guns and to honor my brother, and to help my brother deal with the healing process of one of his buddies passing. And we got involved in the foundation and started the foundation with no real direction. I mean, it was just to honor guns and his life, and to be able to support his family, his wife and young kids. And as we were planning the golf tournament, we didn't know what we were doing. I just had a vision based on the experiences that I've had at other charity events, and how they operate and how they raise money. And that first year, we far exceeded our expectations in terms of how much we could raise and the impact that we could have on the local, Carolinas military community. And once we experienced that first tournament, we were like, we have to continue this. We have to grow this. We have to expand our impact. And it's expanded threefold since that first year. We've grown 300%, and the amount of people that we are able to help and help quickly, which is a key part of our foundation, is being able to help those in need very, very, very quickly, has been absolutely wonderful. It means so much to me to be able to give back my time, because really that's all I have to offer, because I travel so much and I'm preparing for golf tournaments. I can help financially and help give my time to be able to raise money for those in need, and it's just been an honor to be a part of it. There's other golfers on tour that have their own charities and they do great work and for different things, and I've just always wanted to be part of a military charity, and it's so much fun and exciting to see what we're doing.
It's very cool to see the impact. And again, I know you guys are just getting started. Croc, talked a little bit about how people can find the foundation and what you guys are doing to help out. But as I mentioned, right off the get-go, he said he went to the United States Air Force Academy. So I'm sure a lot of people almost see a huge drop-off in listeners there. But Baldi, can you just, again, we've hit on different places about this, but if someone is in need, like who can the foundation help out? And then if people want to get involved, can you hit on like how people can get involved and where they go?
Yeah. So, our organization is founded on really two mission sets, right? Guns' mission sets, right? It's aviation, and then helping family and friends. So helping military family and friends, right? And those are our mission sets. So, we are providing any and all types of aid to military veterans and their families. And we've been doing that since the onset. That can be financial, it can be any other form. We starting this mental health initiative,
so counseling.
It's really kind of any and all things. And then from the aviation side of the house, we're basically trying to expand people's exposure to the aviation industry as a whole. So whether that means people want to get involved in flying, right? We do scholarships, we do kind of informational contact type stuff. So there's really kind of a couple different things that we are focusing on. And if you want to find out any information about what we do, or our relationships with different organizations that we're working with, you can go to gunsgarin.com. It has everything there. It has Guns' story, which is a good quick read about who he was and why we're doing what we're doing. You can contact us. We have got social media, right? So Instagram, we've got Facebook, that's at Guns Garin. And you can contact us at contact@gunsgarin.com for email wise, and we'll be happy to kind of point you in the right direction or help you out in any way that we can. And again, like Michael was saying, one of our things that we try to do is we try to make sure that we get a hold of people or we provide aid, support, help as quickly as we can, since we're a little bit smaller organization that is rapidly growing. So please reach out. Please check us out on our website and let us know if you have any questions or want to help in any way. Like I said, we're growing quickly, so more help the merrier.
Yeah, awesome. I'll link gunsgarin.com down in the show notes so you can click that for those who are listening. Again, someone if you're interested in figuring out if you need some help, you can go there. Again, there's multifaceted from just helping people out in times of need. There's scholarships out there, but again, gunsgarin.com. And I'll throw that down in the show notes below so people can find it there. Now, guys, here's what's going to happen. One, I'm going to give you a chance for parting shots if there's anything I missed. But again, to lead turn it and give you a little bit of a heads up, I'm going to ask you, a 15 or 16-year-old walking down the street, if you bumped into them, if you tell them to do something different, tips, tricks, or advice. That seems to, I think I got Croc on that one. So you can mull that one over, but I'll turn it over. Any kind of parting shots before we go to the, if you found the younger you walking on the street?
Um,
And no is an acceptable answer. I mean, we could have just covered everything there.
I would say that, obviously, dude, we appreciate you having us on here and getting able to kind of share our story, both as like an organization in terms of the Guns Garin Foundation, right? It's something that we're very passionate about. But then also being able to talk about like our story, right? Our history and how, we're here and we're working with the Guns Garin Foundation and why it matters to us. Hopefully that we've been able to kind of share, why we're here and, and how we got here. And, if people have any questions about how that happened, it's kind of a unique, fun story that, has brought us, closer despite a terrible tragedy. But,
Well, I think what's cool about all of this and my brother and I and Guns and the foundation is that the one common theme is that we all have dreamed big in our life. Like Guns dreamed big. We dreamed big. We all worked as hard as we possibly could to make those dreams come true. And so the foundation is really become a part of that and embraces that mentality that we want to dream big. We want to help out thousands of military members and their families because unfortunately there's that many people that need our help, that need help.
Absolutely.
Every year. And, in terms of like wanting to help young people, a word of advice is like dream big, man. I mean, dream big and work your butt off to achieve what you want to achieve. I think that's an overarching theme to kind of the connection between us and the foundation and Guns is dream big and work hard and know that there's resources out there that can help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's a great way kind of to wrap up as I lead into this. So Michael, again, since you're oldest, we'll kick off with you. If you found 15, 16, 17-year-old walking down the street, is there any advice you'd give him?
Yeah, I would say dream big, work hard. Don't let anybody tell you can't accomplish what you want to accomplish. I remember for myself, I used to go around telling everybody that I was going to be a professional golfer, and everybody rolled their eyes. They just looked at me like, okay, sure, whatever, Michael. Yeah, you go do that. But I would go to the golf course and I would work. I would put in the work. I'd putt and chip and I'd go play golf and I'd challenge myself every day. But at the same time, like experience as much as you can. I still played soccer all the way through high school. We're both Eagle Scouts, so we did Boy Scouts all the way through high school. We're essentially adventure seekers. We want to go out and do stuff. We don't want to sit around and just play video games and be hobbits, so to speak.
Yeah.
Get out. You look like a hobbit.
Do I?
Yeah. Just get out and experience the world. There's a huge world out there. There's lots of things, exciting things to do. Lots of different professions. You don't just have to do golf and flying. There's all kinds of stuff. But find that passion. Find that desire, and pursue it with all of your heart. That would be my biggest advice.
I love it. Baldy,
I can't follow that.
You found 15. Yeah, I was like, man, that's a tough one there. Yeah. Cut.
So to kind of, I'd echo that, right? The thing that I would pile on is that what I've always tried to do from the onset, again, we were lucky to have the passions that we had when we were 6, was to do whatever you can to keep as many doors open as possible. And I think that starts with having as much passion and being diligent about working hard towards your goals. But if you kind of look at it from a perspective of, I'm gonna try not to shut any doors myself, in whatever that means, right? So that means obviously doing well in school. That means working hard. That means meeting people, finding a mentor, exposing yourself to different resources. Those things I feel like we did a lot of when we were at that age. And it was super critical to our success, right? So, life will close doors on you, at some point down the road. That just, it happens. But I feel like the worst thing you can do is close a door on yourself, which, whatever, as cliche as it is, believe in yourself. Don't let somebody tell you that you can't do something. It's funny. I feel like I fought internally for a while when I was probably in college, maybe slightly younger, where I was like, I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to be a fighter pilot. I had some exposure to flying, and I was like, everything's so fast. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But one of the things I told myself was, don't close the door on yourself. And I never did. And here we are.
Yeah, look at you guys now. Well, gents, I do really appreciate you taking the time again. It was great to just come up there and hang out with you for the golf tournament, learn about guns and the foundation, the work you guys are doing. And it's cool to kind of do a little bit deeper dive into what makes you guys tick and a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so it's been fun.